signal that awoke the past. The night sky above Earth was silent and endless. Among the stars, a tiny pulse of light crossed the dark like a heartbeat from long ago. It was faint, almost invisible, buried under millions of cosmic noises. But inside an underground research base under the Andes Mountains, a small receiver caught it. The computers blinked once, twice, then began to hum. A pattern appeared, repeating again and again, calm but urgent. It wasn't random. It was too perfect, too measured. Someone or something had sent it. Dr. Elena Mora stared at the glowing screen, her breath caught in her throat. She was the lead scientist at Deep Listening Station 1. For years her team had been scanning the sky, hearing nothing but silence. Now the silence had finally spoken.
80,000 years old, whispered her assistant, eyes wide in disbelief.
The signal had traveled through space since before humans built their first fire, and somehow it had found its way here. To them, to now. Elena leaned closer to the display. The pattern formed geometric shapes, perfect sequences of prime numbers. Every scientist knew what that meant. This was intelligent, deliberate, a message. "Someone is calling us," she said softly, her voice shaking like the instruments across the world. Telescopes turned toward the coordinates. Space agencies confirmed the finding. News spread faster than any storm. Within hours, the world was awake, united in one question. Who sent it? Governments held emergency meetings. Philosophers called it destiny. Generals called it danger. But Elena saw something else. Curiosity, hope, wonder. For 80,000 years, the message had waited. And now it was finally heard. The decoded text was simple. Terrifyingly simple. Who hears this? Reply. No threat, no demand, only invitation. Humanity stood at the edge of an answer. Elena sat alone in her cabin that night, the screen still glowing. She thought about the sender. Were they still alive or just ghosts among stars? Did they expect an answer or had they already forgotten? Her fingers trembled as she wrote in her log. If the universe calls once in 80,000 years, we must reply. The next day, the United Earth Council gathered. Delegates from every nation filled the chamber, their faces hard with uncertainty. Some wanted silence, others wanted power. Elena was invited to speak. "Communication is not war," she told them. "It is understanding." Her words hung in the air like fragile glass. Finally, after long debate, the council voted. Humanity would reply. High above Earth, the Titan relay array waited, a structure of silver mirrors and antennas that glowed under sunlight. It had been built for deep space communication, but never used like this. As the systems came online, power surged through its spine. The world watched as the first beam of light shot outward, carrying humanity's answer, one word, one voice, hello. For days the planet held its breath. Nothing came back. Then strange things began to happen near the signal source. Massive energy bursts, gravity ripples, patterns shifting like ripples on a lake. Scientists struggled to explain it. It was as if something old had awakened, something that had been waiting for an answer. On the 57th day, the Titan array received a new pulse. Stronger, faster, more focused. Elena ran into the control room, her heart pounding. "It's from them," the technician shouted. The data filled the screen, symbols brighter than before. The message was longer, deeper, almost emotional. They played it through the spectral translator, and then they froze. The sound was not alien anymore. It was familiar. Fragments of the human reply, rearranged, multiplied, evolved. "They're copying us," Elena whispered. "They're learning." The thought sent chills through everyone in the room. Whoever they were, they had understood. They had answered back. The president asked for an emergency connection. "What do they want?" he asked. Elena looked at the screen and saw the pulsing code repeat again. Not a word, not a threat, but a rhythm like a heartbeat. "They're saying we're not alone," she said quietly. "And they're listening." Outside, night fell across Earth. People stood on rooftops, in deserts, on mountains, watching the stars. No one spoke, no one moved. For the first time in history, humanity had reached across the void and been heard. The signal had awoken something ancient, and in that silence, the galaxy finally answered. Elena stared into the dark sky, feeling a strange peace. The stars shimmered like eyes watching from far away. She realized the message wasn't just a call across time. It was a mirror reflecting what humanity had become. Curious, brave, alive, and somewhere out there, the sender was smiling. Because after 80,000 years, The universe had finally started a conversation, the return transmission. The message came like thunder in silence. Across the darkness, the returning pulse grew stronger. Clearer, almost alive, every satellite in orbit turned toward it. Every antenna on Earth trembled under the pressure. The Titan relay array glowed white, receiving a flood of data that no system could handle. In 1 hour, humanity went from listening to surviving. Dr. Elena Mora rushed into the control room, screens flashing red everywhere. "Shut it down," someone shouted. "The signal is overloading the grid." But she saw the pattern in the chaos. It wasn't random, it was language. Compressed, dense, deliberate. "It's not an attack," she said calmly. "It's communication." The engineers hesitated, then watched as lines of glowing code rearranged themselves into symbols, each one repeating in rhythm, each one pulsing with light and order. It looked almost like heartbeat waves, human heartbeat waves. The room fell silent except for the slow, steady beeping of machines. "They're mimicking us," Elena whispered again. "They're showing us they understand." Across the planet, governments panicked, military fleets moved into orbit, armed drones surrounded the Titan array, news channels screamed about alien invasion. But Elena saw something beautiful, a connection forming across 80,000 years. She knew this was not a threat, it was a reply. Inside the decoded data, a map unfolded, a set of coordinates near the galactic rim, a star cluster unknown to human charts, its light too faint, too far. The message repeated, now carrying a new fragment. It wasn't just "who hears this" reply, now it said, "We hear you." The words shook Elena to her core. She stared at the translation, heart pounding like the first time she saw the signal. In that moment, she understood. The sender was alive, or at least something of them remained. It had waited all this time for an answer, and now it had found one. Within hours, every space agency united under one mission. They called it Project Echo, humanity's first attempt to follow a message across galaxies. Ships were being prepared, AI probes designed to survive deep space radiation. The goal: reach the coordinates and discover who had called humanity before humans even existed. But not everyone agreed. Many feared what lay beyond. "What if they're not friendly?" one general warned. Elena replied softly. "They've waited 80,000 years for a hello, not a war." On the 15th day after the reply, something strange happened. The signal changed frequency, splitting into two. One part remained directed at Earth, while the other shot outward into deep space, like a guiding beam pointing the way forward. As if the senders wanted humanity to follow, Elena stood by the observation window, watching the night sky shimmer with faint blue light. For a moment she imagined the other side, ancient beings watching them too. Maybe they were once explorers, maybe scientists, maybe something entirely different. But whoever they were, they had reached across time itself to make contact. Then came the sound, not through speakers but deep within the Titan array itself. A vibration so subtle it could be felt in the bones. The sound grew into a whisper, like thousands of voices speaking as one. The translation AI tried to form words but failed, until a single phrase appeared on the display. "Humanity. We remember." The entire control room froze. Elena stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "What do you mean you remember?" she asked the screen as if it could hear her. The AI flickered again, trying to interpret the remaining data. New symbols formed, creating an image of DNA. Human DNA. "They know what we are," someone whispered. "They know us." Panic spread through the command centers of Earth. Was this proof of creation, intervention, or something beyond imagination? Religions, scientists, and philosophers clashed like storms. But Elena stood apart, staring at the coded DNA, because in the pattern she saw something deeper. It wasn't just human DNA. It was older, modified, guided, as if humanity had not evolved alone. The thought sent chills through her spine. Maybe the senders were not just calling us. Maybe they were calling us back outside. The stars burned brighter, the pulse of the signal aligning with the rhythm of Earth's magnetic field. Every compass on the planet shifted slightly. Every satellite clock slowed for 1 second. The galaxy had turned its eyes toward humanity again. Elena recorded her log that night, her voice calm but full of awe. "They reached out across 80,000 years and they remember us," she said. "We thought we were the listeners, but maybe we were always the echo." As dawn rose over the Andes, the Titan array glowed softly under the sunlight. The last message of the night appeared one final time on the screen. "Come home," it said. The mission to Echo months passed since the message whispered, "Come home." The world had changed. Humanity no longer looked at the stars the same way. There was fear, but there was also wonder. For the first time, nations worked together without borders. United under one dream, to answer the call, the United Earth Council approved the largest expedition in human history. A deep space fleet called Project Echo. It was led by Captain Adrian Kane, a quiet man known for never failing a mission, and beside him Dr. Elena Mora, the woman who first heard the ancient signal. Together they carried humanity's hope and questions into the unknown. The flagship EOS-1 was unlike any ship ever built. Powered by fusion drives and quantum sails that bent starlight itself, it was part ship, part laboratory, and part dream. Inside its silver hull, hundreds of scientists, engineers, and soldiers prepared for a journey across the galaxy. Destination: the coordinates sent in the return transmission, a star cluster beyond the Perseus Arm. When launch day arrived, the entire planet watched. Children stood on rooftops waving at the night sky. Old men whispered prayers. Young ones made promises. And as the engines roared, Earth trembled not with fear but pride. Humanity was no longer waiting to be found, they were going to find. The journey began in silence. Days turned into weeks. The stars sliding past like glowing rivers. The crew trained, mapped data, and tried to decode more fragments of the signal. Each pulse they replayed carried new layers of meaning, mathematical, musical, emotional, as if the message itself was alive, adapting, breathing. Elena spent her nights staring at the projection of the star map. Each point of light felt like a question waiting for an answer. She wondered what awaited them. Were the senders still there? Or had they become legends buried in stardust? Sometimes she dreamed of standing on another world, hearing a familiar voice calling her name one night. While running the transmission through a new quantum decryption filter, the data changed. Hidden beneath the primary message was another layer, invisible before, a soft pulse repeating the word, "remember," but when decoded further, it formed a pattern of faces, human faces, ancient and unfamiliar. Their eyes were like theirs, their hands the same, their hearts beating in the same rhythm. The discovery shook the ship. "They look like us," said Captain Kane quietly. "Or we look like them." The crew began to whisper that maybe humanity wasn't born on Earth at all. Maybe the signal wasn't from strangers, but from ancestors. It wasn't a warning, it was a reminder. A message from those who came before. On the 112th day, the ship entered the dark zone, a stretch of space with no starlight. Sensors flickered, engines dimmed, communications went silent. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then the light returned. A single golden star surrounded by fragments of ruined stations. Drifting debris glowed faintly in orbit. Silent monuments of something long dead. "This is it," Elena whispered. The source. They approached slowly among the debris. They found structures half melted but beautiful. Crystalline towers. Impossible geometry. And at the center, a massive ring suspended in space. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the original signal. "The transmitter," Kane said. This is where it began. EOS-1 launched drones into the ring, scanning every surface. Strange carvings covered the interior walls, symbols matching Earth's oldest cave paintings. It made no sense, but it felt familiar. When the final layer of the carvings was mapped, it formed a word in human language. Home. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. Gravity distorted, alarms blared. A burst of energy erupted from the ring. Engulfing the ship in blinding light, Elena grabbed the console, shouting over the chaos, "It's reacting to us. It recognizes us." The entire ship trembled, then silence. When vision returned, the crew gasped. Outside the window, the stars were gone, replaced by an ocean of swirling white light. They were no longer in normal space somehow. The ring had pulled them through. A gate, a bridge, a memory made real. And floating ahead was something vast, glowing like a living city made of glass and time. Elena's voice broke as she whispered. "We didn't come to find them," she said softly. "We came home." The city of Echo's light faded slowly until the crew of EOS-1 could see again. Before them floated a world that wasn't a planet but a structure. A city woven from light and crystal. It was enormous, larger than any moon, stretching endlessly into glowing clouds of energy. The scanners couldn't measure its size or material. It seemed half real, half memory. And yet it pulsed with the same rhythm as a heartbeat. The same rhythm as the original signal. Captain Kane ordered a full scan, but instruments failed to give consistent readings. Every number changed as if the city was alive, reshaping itself each second. Dr. Elena Mora stared through the observation window, eyes wide in wonder. "This isn't a ruin," she whispered. "It's still functioning." They were standing before something that had existed for 80,000 years, maybe more. EOS-1's small landing vessel detached, sliding through the soft white mist that surrounded the structure. Gravity shifted, sound vanished, even the hum of the engines faded away. The ship touched the glowing surface gently, and when they stepped out, the floor rippled under their boots like water that turned solid. Each step echoed faintly, carrying far across the shining halls. The city of echoes had heard its children return. The walls were covered in moving symbols, glowing softly as if speaking. The air smelled faintly of ozone and warmth. Every few seconds, a tone resonated through the structure. Musical, pure, ancient. Elena reached out and placed her hand on one of the walls. The symbols rearranged instantly, forming new shapes, human shapes. It showed faces, cities, oceans, and mountains, Earth itself, the city remembered. Suddenly, a beam of light stretched from the floor to the ceiling. The crew stepped back as a shape began to form within it. A figure appeared, tall and human-like, made entirely of light and motion. It turned its glowing eyes toward them and spoke in a voice that felt more like thought than sound. "Welcome home, descendants," it said. The crew froze, unable to speak. Captain Kane swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head slightly, light rippling across its form. "We are the architects," it said, "the ones who seeded the stars with life." Elena's voice trembled. "You created us?" The figure's eyes softened. "Created, no. Guided, yes." It stepped closer, and for a moment it almost looked human. "You were born on Earth, but your essence came from here," it said. "From the echo." The words hit like thunder, all their history, their wars, their progress. Every part of humanity suddenly felt connected to something much older. Elena struggled to breathe, her heart racing. "Why did you send the signal?" she asked. The figure's light dimmed slightly. "Because the galaxy forgot its children." It showed images in the air, countless civilizations, all gone, wiped away by time and silence. "We called across eternity, waiting for someone to answer," it said. "And now you have." The city around them shifted again, corridors folding, light reshaping. It led them into a vast chamber filled with floating crystals, each one showing fragments of life. Some looked like alien worlds, others unmistakably like Earth's past. Cavemen, pyramids, spaceships, all woven together in a timeline of memory. Elena realized these were recordings, not just of humans, but of every civilization the architects had ever touched. The figure pointed toward the largest crystal at the center. Inside it burned a small blue light pulsing slowly. "This," it said, "is the core signal, the heartbeat of echo, the memory of all life that was." Elena stepped closer. Tears forming in her eyes, the core vibrated softly, responding to her presence. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you listened," the figure answered gently. "The universe speaks, but few have the courage to hear." Outside, alarms suddenly flared across the EOS-1. The ship's sensors detected approaching energy waves, something massive moving toward them. Captain Kane turned sharply. "We've got incoming." The architect looked toward the stars beyond the city. "They have awakened too," it said, voice darkening. "The Onyx Swarm, the destroyers that ended the first civilizations." Elena's heart sank. They followed the signal. The chamber lights shifted to crimson. The hum turning into a deep roar, the architect extended its arm, pressing a glowing hand against the core. A surge of power spread through the city like lightning. "You brought back the light," it said. "Now you must protect it." The ground began to shake, the city's shields activating for the first time in millennia. "We are not soldiers," Captain Kane said. The architect looked at him calmly. "No, but you are human, and that is enough." Outside, in the glowing void, the dark swarm approached, millions of shadows twisting like smoke. The city of echoes began to awaken fully. Its towers brightened, its energy fields expanded, and deep within the core, the heartbeat of humanity grew louder. For 80,000 years, the universe had been silent. Now, it would hear humanity roar. The Echo War. The city of echoes blazed like a newborn sun. Its towers shimmered with living light, and the empty void around it pulsed like a beating heart. Across the dark horizon came the onyx swarm, an endless tide of black shapes sliding through the stars. They moved without sound, without mercy, devouring every glimmer of light they touched. For 80,000 years they had slept, and now they had awakened to destroy again. Captain Adrian Kane stood at the command bridge of EOS-1, staring at the approaching wall of darkness. "They're too many," whispered an officer. "We can't fight that." But Kane didn't answer. His eyes burned with something stronger than fear. He turned toward Dr. Elena Mora, who stood by the projection of the core signal. Her face glowed faintly blue, reflections of the living memory swirling around her. The architect's voice echoed through the air, calm yet heavy. "The swarm consumes knowledge. It devours light. It feeds on silence." Elena lifted her head slowly. "Then we fight with noise." The city responded as if it understood. Thousands of crystalline structures unfolded into the void, forming vast circles of light. Energy surged through the towers, connecting the core to EOS-1. "Your ship is part of Echo now," said the architect. "Your courage will guide it." Kane gripped the control console, his voice steady. "Then let's make humanity heard." The first wave of the swarm hit. The impact shook space itself, ripples bending starlight, tearing silence apart. EOS-1 launched its pulse cannons, beams of pure energy slicing into the dark masses. But for every shadow destroyed, two more appeared. "They're endless," shouted the navigator. Elena closed her eyes, her hand pressed against the core. "Listen to me," she whispered. "Remember our voice?" The core flared bright, projecting the sound of a human heartbeat into the void. Slow at first, then faster, louder, spreading through the city. The architect's towers resonated with it, amplifying the rhythm until space itself began to hum. Every heartbeat became a wave of force. Every echo a shield. The swarm hesitated, confused, recoiling from the vibration. "They can't consume life," Elena said softly. "They can't eat what feels." Captain Kane saw his chance. He ordered the fleet to synchronize with the heartbeat frequency. Every ship fired not with weapons but with resonance pulses. Each blast carried emotion, courage, memory, love, hope. The swarm collapsed inward, their dark bodies breaking apart like glass under light. The city of echoes sang, its song made of every human voice, every heartbeat that had ever lived. And for the first time in the galaxy's history, sound defeated silence, but victory came with a price. The core began to destabilize, its energy bleeding out faster than the city could hold. Elena realized what must be done. She turned to the architect, her voice calm. "If the core fails, everything will vanish." The architect nodded slowly. "The echo must continue." "Even if we end," she smiled faintly, tears glimmering. "Then I'll keep it alive." Before anyone could stop her, Elena stepped into the beam of the core. Light engulfed her completely. Her body dissolved into particles of blue fire, merging with the core's heart. Her consciousness spread through the city, through EOS-1, through every ship. Her voice filled the calm, soft but strong. "I am the echo now," she said. "Keep listening." The core stabilized, its light surging across the galaxy like a dawn. The swarm crumbled, their darkness shredded by the roar of living light. In one final explosion of brilliance, the city of echoes expanded, sending a wave of signal across the stars. It reached distant worlds, forgotten moons, sleeping civilizations, and everywhere it touched, life stirred. When the light faded, only silence remained. EOS-1 floated quietly above the glowing ruins of the swarm. The architect stood on the bridge, its form flickering like the end of a flame. "Her sacrifice will not be forgotten," it said. Captain Kane looked out the window, where the stars shone brighter than ever before. "She isn't gone," he whispered. "She became what she believed in." On Earth, months later, radio telescopes picked up a new signal. It wasn't alien this time, it was human. Elena's voice carried across the void. "Keep listening," she said. "The universe still speaks." The core pulse continued to echo through the stars, a living message of humanity's courage, a reminder that even in the cold darkness, one voice can change everything. The galaxy would remember this moment forever. The day silence ended, the day humanity answered the call, the day the echo became eternal,